What's up, y'all? Hater here, and in today's video I want to talk a little bit about the upcoming open world survival style looter shooter Once Human. The game has been making waves through its wildly successful closed betas, with the developers Starry Studio boasting over 20 million users pre-registered prior to launch. But what kind of game is Once Human really? Is it a true survival game? Or is it more of a looter shooter with survival aspects? I'm going to talk about all that and more today to give you an idea of what you can expect when you fire up the game on July 9th. As a quick disclaimer, this video is based off information from the past few beta tests and what I personally experienced, and therefore has the potential to be slightly different when the game launches. With that in mind, I try to only talk about general gameplay and experiences players will most likely experience should they decide to give Once Human a try. In this video, I'll be covering everything from the survival and looter shooter aspects of the game to the core gameplay loop to give you an idea of what you can expect when you first jump into the game. Now, as I stated at the beginning of the video, Once Human is a multiplayer open world survival game. So what exactly does that mean, and how does the looter shooter aspect tie into it? First and foremost, if you're a veteran of survival games, you're probably not worried about that at all. But if you're new to the genre, then the thought of managing things like hunger, thirst, and Once Human's unique aspect, sanity, might seem overwhelming, while also juggling acquiring and upgrading gear, building your own home base, and completing story missions, all while fighting waves of monstrous Eldritch-style enemies in this post-apocalyptic shooter. At its core, the survival elements in Once Human are incredibly easy to manage at the foundational level. So much so that when I first played Once Human in the second closed beta test, I didn't really find it much of an issue at all, and this was my first experience in a survival game. The game itself has a simple but efficient tutorial you'll go through at the start to introduce these mechanics right off the bat. Managing your status effects can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be, and resources are littered literally everywhere around the map. From simply collecting dirty water that you can boil to make drinkable, or picking up any of the sparse vegetation around the map, to animals you can hunt to cook meals, you'll constantly have resources on hand to tackle the elements. To make it even better, the game provides you with pop-up alerts when you reach certain levels of degrading statuses so that you can simply hit a key on your hotbar to consume whatever you need to combat these stressors. Keeping it as simple as possible, as I like to do when I'm first getting started, I would literally just run around with a ton of boiled water and cooked berries, and that was good enough to carry me through a vast majority of the game. Later on, you'll be able to create more elaborate consumables that offer additional benefits like increased stamina or health, increased jump height, or a boost to weapon damage, all while staving off hunger and thirst. All in all, if the survival aspect of managing these statuses is something that would normally scare you off from trying a survival game, I'm here to tell you that it's incredibly easy to manage in Once Human, so don't let that scare you away. You'll also be needing resources like stone, wood, and higher tier materials to craft both your gear and materials necessary to do everything. From crafting medicine and ammo, which can also just be found in the open world, to smithing higher grade materials for building and repairing your base and vehicles. There are a lot of different mats you can either pick up along your travels or specifically farm depending on both the level or tier of the equipment or your needs and wants as a player. You want marble foundations for your home? Well, you're going to need to farm the materials needed to do so. I realize this can seem like a lot without having experienced it, but trust me when I say that you won't really need to focus farm for a majority of the materials you need, as like I said, there are materials scattered literally everywhere to pick up, and you'll constantly be walking by them. So whether you want to be a resource goblin and scoop everything up as you pass by, or target farm materials later, you'll be flooded with resources if you just play the game. You can even further make it easier on yourself thanks to some of the deviations or companions you keep at your base that can auto-collect materials for you while you're out completing whatever your current task is, or even when you're offline. Next, I want to talk about the other major component of the game, the looter shooter aspect. When you hear the term looter shooter, games like Borderlands, Destiny, The Division, even the recently popular First Descendant may come to mind. Just like those games, you'll be progressing through the story of Once Human, leveling your characters, you progress through the various missions that guide you through the massive map. With that looter shooter mindset in hand, Once Human offers a vast majority of weapons and gear that you'll come across while leveling and pushing into the endgame that will allow you to put together countless different builds. As you progress through the campaign and different areas of the map, you'll be able to acquire newer, rarer, and stronger weapons and armor that you can craft and upgrade if you have enough of the right materials. Additionally, there's an RNG-based gacha machine in the game that can reward you with blueprints for some of the strongest weapons and gear in the game, but I'll touch more on that later. Weapons can have additional perks that apply various status effects or additional damage to enemies, like the handgun Wildfire, which can apply the bullseye effect, allowing your weapons to do up to 20% more damage for a period of time. The Burn AR Crank, which applies stacks of burn that can deal incredible amounts of damage over time. Then there's mine and many other players' favorite, Weapons with Shrapnel, which essentially has the potential to hit multiple points on a target with a single bullet, dealing incredibly high damage. As for the armor, Once Human gives many of the mid to end game armor sets perks, so that the more pieces you wear from a certain set, the more additional perks you unlock. Wearing one piece will give you a single bonus, two will provide a second bonus, so on and so forth up to a total of 4 pieces. This gives you total control over creating a build tailored specifically around what you want, whether that be speccing into things like crit chance, crit damage, and weak spot damage, or boosting the effect of your status damage and even giving you things like additional HP. There are also mods you can slot in your weapons and armor that provide even more benefits to further bolster your gear. You'll find these from opening various weapon and gear crates scattered throughout the map and in missions, as well as being rewarded some of the highest tier mods from clearing campaign bosses, completing silos, and taking part in raids. One big thing to note, all of these crafted weapons and armor pieces and even the mods can be upgraded from materials you scavenge around the map or resources you earn from playing the game. So for the most part, you won't need to go that far out of your way, if even at all, to create some of the strongest gear in the game. Just pick up literally everything that you can to later break down to your base for materials. While it is an open world and you can essentially travel wherever you want inside the confines of any seasonal or story progression, you'll typically stay in the area that coincides with your current level. The different regions of the map house certain components of the story that you'll ideally want to be on or around the same level as in order to facilitate a smoother experience. Doesn't mean you can't go into a region that's above your current level, but you're definitely going to have a rough time if you try to get too far ahead of yourself. The TLDR of this is that you'll progress your level from fighting enemies, completing missions, and clearing out areas of the map like strongholds, so you won't really need to worry about focusing on leveling your character until you get closer to the end of the campaign and start looking to push into the endgame activities like master silos, raids, and even the massive world events. Alongside the campaign, there are server-wide public events that you can fast travel to, which allow you to fight alongside your fellow players on the server to earn XP and loot. As far as the core gameplay loop goes, it can be as straightforward and linear as you want it to be, or you can bounce around and complete side missions and work on things like building your base, taking part in world events, or just casually enjoying some fishing. When you make it through the tutorial, you'll start the core story and be guided through various objectives, running the occasional fetch quest and clearing out the named areas of interest, strongholds, before tackling a boss to progress to the next region of the map. You can literally load into the game for the first time and completely ignore the story to focus on leveling and building your home base, though you'll find at a point what you can do will become limited until you progress the story further. So take it at your own pace, zoom through the campaign, or just enjoy exploring the different areas of the map and focus on what you want. The world is your oyster and Once Human. The last bit of info I want to cover for the core gameplay loop revolves around the seasons or period of content that concludes with a seemingly complete wipe of your account, minus whatever you transfer over to the game's cross-season realm, Eternaland. Essentially, the seasons will most likely release in roughly 1-week phases, with each new phase bringing things like additional story missions, higher difficulty content, and even unlocking portions of the map. So in a sense, if you're on degen hours and absolutely no life in the game, you'll most likely feel the sting of the time gating, though I'd be willing to bet that most players won't really feel it all that much because there is an insane amount of things to do around the map. As for Eternaland and carrying gear over from one wipe to the next, you'll need a form of seasonal currency to transfer items and thus use them in future seasons. They briefly included this in the last closed beta test, but I didn't really mess with it, so I'm not going to feed you a bunch of bull about it. I'll be looking to make another video covering Eternaland once the game releases and we're approaching the first wipe. On to some of the other progression aspects of the game. As you continue to progress, you'll unlock things like specializations and mimetics that will allow you to do things like increase your weapon damage output, craft upgraded benches that allow you to craft better items and gear, and even create unique items that others may not be able to specialize in. If you want to know what the best specializations are, I'll be putting out another video covering the best things to look out for, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. So far, I've covered what Once Human is as far as an open world survival game with heavy looter shooter influence, but I've only begun to scratch the surface. You've got things like deviations, the companions that can fight alongside you or auto collect materials for you. There's the gotcha machine that lets you pull from some of the strongest weapons and armor in the game. Once Human even has a clan system called warbands with smaller groups called hives intertwined within. There's 40-player server-wide bosses that require a ton of coordination and firepower, or just a pocket full of Molotov cocktails. My fellow beta testers will know what I'm talking about. And yes, there's PvP, not just PvP by itself, but entire servers dedicated to PvP and fighting other warbands, and even opt-in PvP events on PvE servers so that you can have some fun trashing your friends there too. But I'm going to stop myself there because this video could continue and be 3 or 4 times the length it will end up being because there's so much to go over with this game. Everything I covered should hopefully be enough to give you an idea of what to expect should you choose to give Once Human a try. If you have any questions or anything to add, please put them down in the comments section below, and I'll be happy to answer them. I hope that by watching this, you'll consider trying Once Human, especially considering it will be free to play. What do you have to lose? That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it or found any of the information useful, I'd greatly appreciate it if you liked the video, and let me know in the comment section if you'll be joining me when Once Human launches on July 9th. That's it for me. I'm done. I'm out, and I'll see you on the next one.